Hello, and how's everyone doing today? Welcome to the channel. If you're new, if you're a returning viewer, I'm glad to have you back, and welcome to another episode of Justin Talks Games. Today I want to talk about Resident Evil 9. Give my thoughts, my opinions, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the things that don't make sense in the center, and just some other things that I want to talk about and try to explain as a whole. So make sure to grab your drinks. I got my drink right here. Yes, that's the straw. I like drinking coffee with a straw sometimes. Don't judge me. Grab your snacks. My snacks are nowhere to be found because I actually don't have snacks anymore. Um, Not that I need to tell you guys this and I understand, but I like being honest and transparent and stuff. So, if you go back and watch my older videos, like years ago, of my Justin Talks games, like when I first started and everything, that was what, 6, 7, long time, look, years ago anyway. I looked very different, and I'm not just talking about the hair, but, I looked a lot better. Let's be honest, a lot bigger here. I got this here, be honest, I don't look good. Let's be bluntly honest here. I know some people are going to say, "Oh, you look fine. You look okay." No, I don't. I don't look good, and a lot of the times I don't feel good because I'm sore and this and that, whatever. But anyway, I cut out snacks. I don't have snacks anymore. But I want you guys to continue having your snacks. Just because I'm not doesn't mean that you guys can't. Also started going to the gym as well, which is great. I feel good after every time I do it. I have one coffee a day. This is my coffee. I'm actually recording this at like 9 in the morning or something like that. So I'm gonna have water the rest of the day. That's what I've been doing for the whole month. Some videos you may see me actually having water instead of coffee. But yeah, basically I've just made some changes, and me telling you guys also gives me a reason to keep pushing myself because I don't like to lie, right? I don't like to make things up. Don't like to lie. So if I tell you guys, hey, look, I'm doing this stuff, blah, blah, you know what I mean? Eventually, over the next couple of months and stuff, hopefully I will start to look a little different, and it'll be like, hey, so he's actually doing these things. So, there's that. And it also pushes me, too, to look back on this video and be like, wow, look how much I've changed, right? So there's that. I just kind of wanted to get that out of the way. But let's get into Resident Evil 9 now. So let's start with the good things. I really like Grace as a character. As a new character of the franchise, I really, really enjoyed her. I thought, the person who did her voice work was phenomenal. She did an amazing job. I love the stutters, when she's scared or when she's talking just normal or when she's trying to figure stuff out. The voice work in Resident Evil 9 is absolutely amazing, and I think the woman who did Grace knocked it out of the park. I thought she did great. As a character herself, take away the voice work, but as a character herself, I thought she was very good compared to Ethan from Resident Evil 7 and 8. Now, I understand where Capcom was going with Ethan, so I'm not bashing, though. I'm not smashing Capcom. I mean, the series is 30 years old, right? So I'm not going to, smash them for trying something, right? As long as they don't go back to Resident Evil 6, they're in good books for me. But I understand where they're coming from with Ethan. Ethan was basically supposed to be the everyman. The individual players were supposed to fill his shoes and supposed to technically be Ethan. Right? So, example, I'm playing Resident Evil 7. I am Ethan, right? I'm seeing Ethan. He doesn't have much of a personality because his personality is supposed to be your personality. Aside from the story beats, obviously his wife and stuff, they do need to give him a very minimal backstory, but everything else basically the player fills in. With Grace, that was completely different. She was literally her own person, her own character and everything. And yeah, I thought she was great. I really, really liked her. I loved her gameplay. I thought her gameplay was very, very good. I liked, sneaking around the zombies. The only thing I wish that she could do was, the stealth kills with the knives. I think that was a missed opportunity. Even if yeah, you have the blood injector, but they could have had it where you could only do stealth kills if the knife you get is like full strength or something, like if it's not degraded in any way, they could have had it. Because you pick up knives in the game all the time, and a lot of them are like halfway broken. A lot of them are full. They could have kind of done that. Again, I'm not complaining. It's just kind of a missed opportunity because there was a couple of times the zombie was in the way, and I have a knife, and I'm crouching, and I'm like, man, I just want to be able to go boom like that and take him down. But obviously, you can't do that. But other than that, I thought her gameplay was very, very good. The care center, I really liked the care center. It's really, really cool. Definitely had that Resident Evil feel to it. Really big, one location that's really big, needing key cards to go into places and do different things and puzzles and this and that. Just such a cool experience. I really liked it. Another cool thing that I really like is there's a lot of throwbacks to the previous games. The two biggest ones, if you have played the other games, like if you played the original games, you'll definitely instantly pick up on this, especially the one. So one of the biggest things, and it's the main thing in the game, you can't miss it, is you need to get three or four of these like glass square gem things that you need to put into a door. Now, all of the puzzles for all of them are actually the same emblems as the crests from the literal first Resident Evil game. The moon, the sun, the stars or something like that. I can't remember, but there's that. Now that was really cool. I thought that was awesome. There's also another really, really big Easter egg as well, that takes place at the end of the whole care center part before you go to Raccoon City. There's another really big one that I really, really like, and it's not in the form of something that's in your face. It's an entire actual part of the game. Now, if you played Resident Evil 0, this will definitely get you thinking, and you'll be like, wow, right away. So there's a part where you fight Marie for the final time, and you have to open up this giant sunroof thing. And in order to do so, you have to run around and you have to power up three different things, while evading Marie in the lower level. This part is such like a nod or whatever you want to call it to Resident Evil 0. And the reason I say that is because in Resident Evil 0, at the end when you're fighting Marcus, you are at a helipad, and Rebecca has to run and turn all these valves and stuff to unlock locks to open up a giant sunroof thing. And it has like teeth on the door. Just the design of the door has square teeth and everything like that. Like it opens up like this, right? And Rebecca has to go all over, right? There's four of them, and like in each area. And as Billy, you have to protect her. Just stun Marcus every once in a while. So that's how you do that. In Resident Evil 9, for Marie, it's basically the same thing. What you're doing is, so when you first start, you push a button, and this giant ceiling, same thing with the teeth and everything, open up like that, and it stops. Now, instead of having to unlock it like 0, you're running around, and you're cranking on these power consoles to power up the area. And there's 3 of them that you need to do, 3 in each area. Now, when you get to the top, Maria jumps up, and the door, you push a button, and the ceiling opens up just like that, like Resident Evil 0, opens right up. And the other thing that, is exactly 1-to-1 to 0 is that after the ceiling has opened, Rebecca throws Billy a 44 revolver Magnum. And, he fires one shot at her, fires one shot at Marcus. Marcus falls back and he dies, because he's taking a lot of sun damage, and he dies. And Resident Evil 9, you push that, the thing opens all the way up like that. Maria's taking sun damage, and Grace fires one shot from the Magnum, and, she dies. I thought that was beautiful. The first time I played it, I clued in as soon as the thing opened, and it's like, power up to three things. It hit me just like there. I was like, wow, like this is really cool. Um, so that was a really, really cool Easter egg, in a way. Oh man, what's another cool Easter egg? The original 1996 Resident Evil 1 is in Resident Evil 9. I think I pointed this out in the channel. I mean, on the series. I think I did. I can't remember. Um, when you're running around the RPD, there's basically like a treasure hunt that you have to do. You have to do a bunch of things, blah, blah, and then eventually you'll get a key for a JoJo locker. Now, the funny thing is, the JoJo locker is a reference to JoJo Bizarre Adventure. It's in a Japanese anime show. I've never watched it myself, but this is a reference that's gone back even in the original 1998 Resident Evil 2. There's a locker in that game that says JoJo on it on there. Which in turn, in the remake of Resident Evil 2, they also have the JoJo locker, and then obviously in Resident Evil 9, they have the JoJo locker still. But the interesting is, so you open this locker up. I don't think it's the JoJo locker they open up in 9 though. I can't remember, but you open up a locker. So there's two. The JoJo is a reference to a TV show, and the Resident Evil 1 one. So you do this treasure hunt, you open up the locker, and there's a copy of the Sega version of Resident Evil 1. The case is sitting in the locker, and the CD, the black CD, says Resident Evil and everything, and that's also sitting on the shelf as well, which is pretty cool. There's also some Mega Man stuff in there as well, too. Some really, really cool stuff. What's another Easter egg I can think of? Another really cool one, is, come on, remember his name? Tofu. Tofu is also in Resident Evil 9. I thought that was really cool. So, to explain Tofu a little bit, Tofu goes all the way back to the original Resident Evil 2 as well. So, basically, Tofu was supposed to be a test model for the developers to test out, character movements, character taking damage, all that kind of stuff. So basically, it was, just a tofu block, that the developers used. It was never meant for anything, except for developer stuff before the game came out, testing. A lot of people seen that, and they loved it. They thought it was awesome and funny that they decided to make Tofu into a funny mini game. The original one, and it's basically a spoof or a joke version of Hunk's Fourth Survivor mode, which in Fourth Survivor you play as Hunk, and you're basically trying to escape the RPD. That's also a mode that was also in the original Resident Evil 2 as well. So they took the tofu and made a funny version of Fourth Survivor called the Tofu Survivor. It's pretty funny. Which in turn, they added Tofu Survivor to the remake of Resident Evil 2, but they expanded it with like 3, or at least like 5 or 6 other Tofus. It was kind of strange, but fun game mode nonetheless. In Resident Evil 9, while you're exploring the RPD, you will hear the familiar wah, 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 and you'll look around, and he'll be on the outside of the RPD looking in through the window like, well, he'll be looking for you. And there's a bunch of places. He doesn't just show up in one place. There's a bunch of places that he can show up. But you gotta be quick, because once he makes, when you hear the sound, he looks really quick, and then he looks away. So it's one of those almost like blink or you'll miss it. Not that fast, but almost. So I thought that was a fun little Easter egg. Another fun thing is you can damage him. If you shoot him, he will make the damage sound that he makes. And he will actually show damage. I thought that was a little fun Easter egg. They put a lot of time and effort into that. I thought that was quite cool. So yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed going back to the care center. I really enjoyed the care center with Grace. I thought it was great. to go into the things that I didn't like about the care center, I'll kind of break this into parts. What I didn't like about the care center was the basement. The whole basement part to me seemed like to drag on a little bit. I didn't really care for it. Um, while some people may enjoy that part, and that's great, I'm glad that they did. I'm not here to bash anybody. um, if you enjoyed the basement part, it's great. But for me, I didn't care for it. As soon as she dropped down and I seen all like the rock and the stone and everything, and I was just like, oh, not a level like this. That was my first thought, honestly, because I knew it was gonna be drawn out. I just ah. Um, yeah, so I didn't care for that part. I was glad to get that part done. Um, when you play as Leon in the Care Center for the first time, it is potentially pointless depending on how you played as Grace. Um, the one thing that I do want to point out that I really don't like that games do is make enemy bosses that are like that they use the excuse they copy and paste the model and they're like, oh, this so and so's brother or whatever like that. To me that's just kind of lazy. I don't like that. Um, when you play as Leon for the first time, oh sorry, the second time, not the first time, the second time I should say, because the first time you have a lot going on, but the second time you escape from Victor, and you fight another big chunk guy, who I joked around when in my playthrough I called him Fatty Jim, but his actual name is Chunk. So you fight Chunk with Grace. The cool thing that, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but the cool thing is about the chunk guys, especially with Grace, there's multiple ways you can kill him, which is pretty cool. Anyways, so you take out Chunk with Grace, and then now you're playing as Leon, and you're running around in the, what do you call it? Not the ceiling, you're running around in the attic, and you read a note and it basically says, talks about another brother that excessively eats and this and that. And when I read that, I rolled my eyes. I was like, you guys are really Capcom, like you of all people, guys, come on, you're doing this. So that was kind of disappointing. And then when you get to him, he's eating a monster. You're conveniently placed shotgun right beside him. Yeah, it's cool you get a shotgun, but the placement was just kind of felt like, here you go, use the shotgun against the boss. I mean, obviously that's why it was there, but I was just kind of like, there could have been another way you got it. You could have found it off a dead guy defending himself or locked in a case or something, not just randomly perfectly placed beside him. I thought that was like, Anyway, you're fighting Chunk, and he looks exactly like and acts and sounds exactly just like the first guy. So they literally copied the same model, the same enemy from Grace's part, and placed him on, for Leon. I didn't care for that. I thought they could have done something a little more interesting, a little bit different. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that. Also, once you drop down into the actual care center itself, depending on how you played as Grace, it could be pointless to even play as Leon in that part of the care center. Reason I say that is because if you kill all the enemies as Grace, and there's enough resources to do that, if you kill all the enemies with Grace, and then you go back and play as Leon, there's going to be no enemies for you to fight. There's going to be nothing to do. So you literally would start off, kill the chunk guy, and then boom, book it straight to the top floor, which cuts his playtime down to like 5 minutes tops, maybe 10, depending. Yeah, he does have some lockers or dressers, whatever you want to call them, that he can break into. But other than like the 3 dressers that he can break into, if you've killed every enemy, there's literally nothing for him to do. So that part was I don't want to say pointless, but it kind of was in a way. They definitely could have made Leon go a different way to Victor's office or something. I don't know. They could have done something different. Oh man. The sniper rifle part with Leon in the care center didn't bother me. It didn't bother me because it wasn't drawn out. It wasn't too long. It didn't overstay its welcome, but it also wasn't too short. So I didn't mind that part. What I did find silly was that Victor had to conveniently place sniper rifle against his wall. I thought that was very random. Again, not in a case, not in anything, just randomly sitting against the wall. When you first walk in there, when it's doing the cutscene, you don't see the sniper rifle. And then when he looks out the window and he sees the zombies and stuff coming, he turns and looks, and then it's magically there. I thought that was kind of silly. Um, but the sequence itself actually playing, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it at all. When you're done that part, however, I felt the courtyard was a little weird, in terms of Capcom's decisions for design. The reason I say that is because when you're doing the sniper part, you have zombies. So you're up here like this, and the zombies are coming out, and they're coming out this way, right? They're coming out, and they're going this way, whatever. Same with the zombies and the butcher and all that. They all come out from underneath you, and go this way. So when you're done, you jump down. Now, mind you, during this part, there's no explosion, there's no sound of anything falling down or anything. You jump down, and there's like this wooden shack, right? Which, okay, cool. But you jump down, and there's a bunch of stuff blocking the door, so the player can't go inside in Capcom fashion. They did the same thing in Resident Evil 3. It's really stupid. But anyway, you jump down, and the whole thing is blocked off. So how did the zombies get to Grace? How did the butcher man, get out of the care center and get to Grace? There's a lot of there's a couple of design decisions that don't make sense either. And that is one of the biggest ones. It's not very consistent. It's like wave after wave of zombies. Okay, that's cool. But then when you jump down, how did they get to Grace? This place is blocked off. How do you get to Grace? It doesn't make sense. The boss fight in the church didn't. It was okay. It was a little. I can't think of the word. Basically, Big Boss converts enemies to make them more powerful. It's a trend that game designers do. And I don't think Resident Evil's done that in a long time. So I can't really fault them or say anything bad about it, but I was a little burnt out of that boss at that point. I mean, you shoot, there's zombies, you shoot the pus things, and the blood bursts and goes all over the other zombie, causes them to change into the blister head, and whatever. I didn't really care for that, to be honest. At the end of the day, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't my, most favorite thing in the world. I really like the Marie part because it is a huge Easter egg and nod to a previous Resident Evil game. Can you guys guess what it is? No? I'll tell you, it's Resident Evil 0. Yeah, that's right. I said Resident Evil 0. The game that everybody bashes and hates online. I'm not even going to get into that. But yes, Resident Evil 0. It's a big, big, huge Easter egg of Resident Evil 0. And so basically, to explain what I'm talking about, so at the end of Resident Evil 0, if anybody has played it, they'd know you fight Marcus at the very end. While you're doing that, you're playing as Billy. Now I'm talking about the second phase of the fight, not the first one. So after they see the sunlight and all that, so you're playing as Billy. Rebecca has to turn these valves to unlock these locks that are holding this giant ceiling in place, right? And I think there's 4 of them that Rebecca needs to do. So you do all 4 of those, and then the ceiling, opens up. The big ceiling, it has teeth holding it together, and it opens up like that, revealing the sun. It's daytime. Sun comes down and beams down on Marcus. Marcus is taking sun damage and all that. Rebecca finds a magnum, throws Billy the magnum, and Billy takes one shot, fires a magnum, and because of how much sun damage he's taken, he's basically frail and almost ready to fall apart. Billy fires the magnum, and he just pretty much obliterates, and he falls down. He's dead. He's gone. For Resident Evil 9, instead of turning cranks, instead of turning valves, you're actually turning a crank to power up 3 different computer stations to power up the area. And it's in 3 different areas in the basement place. So you do that while trying to stay away from Rhea. You have to stun her with the Magnum. Same thing, kind of like stunning Marcus with Billy. Anyway, you power all 3 up. You go up to the ceiling. You go back up to the other floor. You push a button, and the entire ceiling opens up just like it does in Resident Evil 0. Same design of roof, with the teeth and everything. Opens wide like that. Daytime sun coming down. And Maria's taking sun damage and all that. And, as Grace, what do? You fire 1 magnum shot, and then she dies. I thought that was brilliant. It's not in your face. Like, hey, it's Resident Evil 0, remember this? It's not in your face. But if you've played a lot of the classic games and you prefer the classic games over the new games, and you're very well versed and you very much remember and memorize everything from the original games, when you're doing this part, it'll put a big smile on your face because that's what it is. It's a big reference to that. And I loved it. That's actually one of my favorite parts of the game. I remember after after my first playthrough, so like my second playthrough, whatever. I actually went to Spotify and actually played the Zero battle music for that part while doing that, and it added so much to it. It was really, really fun and cool. So moving on to Raccoon City now. Holy crap! It was very. I don't even know how to explain it. Emotional, I guess you could say. When Leon stepped foot out of his car into the city, I didn't really want to walk around at first. I was taking everything in. I was looking around or whatever, and that was kind of scary to me, to be honest. The first time doing it, it was scary, and not in a monster, they're gonna come and get you scary, but more of a bad things happen to here, and you shouldn't be here, kind of scary. Especially like when I had memories of the original Resident Evil 3's ending flooding into my mind while I was looking around at these buildings and stuff. For those of you who have not played the original Resident Evil 3, definitely go do that because it's a billion times better than the remake. And it's also missing like 70%, but we're not going to get into that. But yeah, if you haven't played the original Resident Evil 3, definitely do that because the ending is much better in the original than it is in the remake. The bomb goes off, and it shows all different angles, different places of the city getting wiped out from the explosion going off. There's very heartfelt music playing and everything. And then after all of that happens, there is a news broadcast explaining what happened and saying, our hearts go out to the Raccoon City, over 100,000 people, blah, blah, blah. It's just a very emotional moment. And then going, almost I don't want to say 30 years later because the game came out in 99, but we'll say almost 20 years later. So, you step foot in Raccoon City and all those thoughts come flooding in your head and you see all these, ruined buildings. It's almost like an entire different, not experience. What do you call it? I don't know how to explain it, but it's basically going from playing Resident Evil almost to playing something like Fallout. It's completely different. Like once you get to Raccoon City, it's completely different. It's almost like the world's been destroyed. And, you think about the broadcast, you think about the original ending of Resident Evil 3, and you're looking around and everything, and it makes you feel sad and like you feel very uneased. That's how I felt when I first did it. And I was walking around, and while I was even walking around, I was like, man, I'm not supposed to be here. It was such a stress, very unreal feeling. But one thing I really, really, really loved that they added was the Titan spinner. I was so glad they added a spider boss because Resident Evil needs proper spiders. We haven't had proper spiders since um actually Resident Evil 1 remake. I was gonna say Code Veronica, but Resident Evil 1 remake that came out in 2002 was the last time we had actual proper spiders. I don't count um, the spider-like things from Resident Evil 4. I'm talking like real, actual spiders. I was so glad that they added that in Resident Evil 9. I loved that boss fight. I loved that whole sequence being chased by it and everything. It was amazing. I had a giant smile on my face the whole time. Um, I know after it came out, there was actually a lot of complaints. A lot of people were mad that they added a spider. Basically saying, "Oh, I have arachnophobia. I can't fucking play this part." Blah blah blah. They shouldn't be adding this to the game and blah blah blah. They should be considerate. Just a bunch of kind of stupid crap like that. People being very entitled and all that. But the one thing I try to remind people online, and sometimes I get bashed. Sometimes I have people who agree with me. Whatever. It is what it is. I always remind people Resident Evil is supposed to be a horror franchise. That's what it's supposed to be. Um, Resident Evil 4 completely shifted the franchise, and in my opinion, still hasn't recovered. But if it scares you, it's doing its job. That's good. I understand people have fears, irrational fears, and this and that, whatever. I get it. But again, one, it's a video game. Two, it is a horror franchise that has been out for 30 years. It is very well known what enemies, characters, whatever, are in it. There are movies, there are games. It's all over YouTube. Billions of YouTube people do it. I'm not the only one, obviously. You know, so it's very well known what you're getting yourself into. And if you don't know what you're getting yourself into, you can, research stuff. But apparently that's very difficult these days, by the way. I'm not going to get into a whole thing, but apparently that's very, very difficult to research and do your own shit online now. That's something I've really noticed. But anyway, there's lots of resources online. You can check Google, you can watch YouTube, you can go to Reddit and read posts and stuff. You have the tools to check to see if this game is okay for you, or if this franchise is okay for you. You shouldn't be coming in and trying to change, franchises. I see a lot of people, like I said, getting so mad that they added Spider and they did this and that. I, for one, was very, very happy that they did. Because that's one enemy that I've honestly been missing in Resident Evil. They had spiders in the original 1, 2, 3, Veronica, Hell Zero, all that kind of all the stuff. Spiders were kind of a staple enemy. Just like zombies, pretty much in all the games before 4. Um, so it put a giant smile on my face. I was very happy to see that. Oh, and they added the little spiders too. If anybody who has played the original Resident Evil 1 back in '96, or even the director's cut in '97, or the remake of 1, when you're fighting the spider boss in the caves there, while you're fighting, tiny mini spiders will also come and attack you too. So that was really cool. They added mini spiders to 7 too, or 9, I mean, too. So that was really, really cool. The RPD was another thing that, bam, hit me like a ton of bricks. Again, the original Resident Evil 2 is in my top like 3 or 4 Resident Evil games. I have my Resident Evil 2 on PS2 is actually signed by Allison Court. I have the 64 one. I have the the GameCube port. All that stuff. So seeing the RPD in that state, yes, it's a remake version, but they only really did that because that's what people are used to. But whatever. Anyway, seeing it like that definitely hit me like a ton of bricks too. I didn't really want to walk around in there too because just that made me sad because again the RPD when I was growing up was almost in terms of Resident Evil they're almost like a second home. Same with the Spencer Mansion, right? So seeing it like that was like, oh man, it's cool, but it's really sad if that makes sense. Also, the Tyrant fight. That was awesome. I really liked it. His design is actually based off of the original Resident Evil 2 96 or 98, not the remake. So that was really cool. Um, I thought that was awesome. The coat that he's wearing, how the strap kind of comes over here instead of just a generic random rain like leather coat. The strap one that comes down, that's what he wore in the original Resident Evil 2. So I thought that was awesome. Um, his transformation was also a much better than the Resident Evil 2 remake one. Um, the one hand completely changes, the other hand, changes but not fully. In my opinion, they should have gone all out. They should have gave us the original transformation with both hands, super buffed out, full body and all that. They should have done that, but for whatever reason they didn't. Some parts of the game do honestly feel kind of rushed. Um, I don't know if that was a rush decision or if it was just, hey, let's just do this. But they could have done that, and if they did, that would have been a 10 out of 10 fight. For me, it's 9 out of 10 because they didn't take that extra step. But other than that, I thought it was great. Moving on to the arc. I didn't care for it, to be honest. Usually the lab sections I really like in Resident Evil games. I know a lot of people find it starts off strong and then it gets weaker as the game progresses in terms of like strengths and stuff. I really liked the labs, and I felt that the arc really fell flat for me. I did not really like it at all, to be honest. Um, I didn't like the flat white colors and all that. They should have went, in my opinion, they should have went with something similar to the Resident Evil 2 remakes lab. I thought that was very well laid out. I really liked it. Again, there were a lot of things that I didn't like about the lab in Resident Evil 2, but we're not going to get into that. But in terms of design, I really, really enjoyed that, and they should have went with that sort of design. um, in terms of like how they design the hallways and this and that, I don't mean like copy paste the whole thing. But I didn't like the arc. I thought it was quite boring. Even in terms of gameplay itself, I thought that it was very boring. I didn't like it. That part really felt rushed to me. Almost like it was last minute and they just kind of did it because, and then they slapped the story onto it. I didn't really care for that. In terms of the nursery or whatever they call it, with all like the balls and stuff, of all the babies and stuff, to be honest, that felt very Resident Evil 5-ish to me. So they could have maybe, I mean, yeah, obviously it served a purpose, kind of like the Marie thing. But I felt like that was like the Resident Evil 5 pod thing with the bodies and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool in a way. Um, I don't know what else. I'm in a different place now because my phone almost died. So, yep, as I was saying, so the bulb things in the area, I can't remember what it's called. It's not nursery. I know that's what I called it, but I can't remember what it's called. Reminds me, like I said, of Resident Evil 5 with all the pods that all the bodies had in the Tricell facility. That's also where you fight the giant, like crab thingy, whatever. I don't know what it's called, but it's very similar to that. It's where Chris and Sheva try to find Jill, and her pod's empty. That's what that Area 9 kind of reminded me of. So that was kind of cool too. The commander fight was a little bit of a letdown. While the intro was really cool, and then they fight, but the fight was very easy. Especially on normal. On normal was very, very easy. On easy it was really easy. On Insano mode, it was a bit difficult. It did take me a little while to do, admittedly. But other than that, it wasn't too bad. There's theories floating around online that the commander could be Hunk. I don't know. Yes, it's the same voice actor. Yeah, very similar outfit and all that. But you got to remember, Resident Evil 9's theme is blood and clones, right? Look at Xeno. Xeno is a clone of Albert Wesker, right? Um, so why can't the commander be a clone of Hunk? Um, we don't know if he is a clone. We don't know if it's the real Hunk. We don't know. Capcom didn't say. Um, Even his name in the display thing when you're looking at characters says the commander. Doesn't say Hunk. So that's also quite interesting. Also, when you go back to the area, his body's gone, but the blood's a little bit smeared, meaning that he probably got up. So that guy, whoever he is probably still alive. Um, oh boy. So if we go to story, I didn't mind the story. It wasn't bad. The whole blood thing was interesting. The blood lab with that, I didn't even touch on that. The blood lab was pretty cool. A little too short for my liking, but it was really cool. Um, the whole Spencer thing. Oh man, this is the thing I've been waiting to talk about for a little while. Um, a lot of people online are saying that, and these are people who obviously haven't played all the games, so I can't fully fault them, you know. But there's a lot of people who are saying, oh, Spencer felt bad for everything he did. He redeemed himself by making this and all that. And again, I'd like to assume that a lot of these people making these claims and stuff are people who have only played the remakes and then 7, 8, 9, right? They haven't played the original, 1, 2, 3, Survivor, Veronica, Zero, all that kind of stuff. Where all these games, they really paint a picture of just how much of a terrible person he actually was, including Resident Evil 5. You know. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's his redemption," and he feels bad. He did this because he felt bad and everything. Um, Anybody, like I said, anybody who's played all of the games from day one to now, which it seems like there's less and less of us, but regardless of that fact, anybody who has played from the beginning to now can put the pieces together. And Spencer did not feel bad for anything that he did. He was 100% putting a show on for Alyssa. 100%. He didn't care. He didn't feel bad. He said that he felt bad and, blah, 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 and whatever. But it was a show. He knows how to talk. He's a charismatic guy. He knows how to talk. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's dementia. Oh, he had dementia. He went crazy. He did this." Yeah, he was a crazy guy, but he was a smart crazy guy. He wasn't stupid. Um, you also got to do the fact too, is that so the interview takes place obviously before Resident Evil 5. So Lost in Nightmares DLC takes place in 2006. So this interview would have had to take place either the same year or a little bit earlier than 2006. Because, in 2006 is Lost in Nightmares DLC. It's where Chris and Jill go to Spencer's castle. They found out the whereabouts. They were going to apprehend him. And as you're playing that DLC and, going through his castle and the underground and all that, there's still experiments going on. There is lots of, powerful monsters in the basement of the place and the underground. Lots of bodies, lots of torture devices, all that stuff. He basically told his butler to continue experiments and stuff like that too. He didn't care at all. He is a terrible, absolute terrible person through and through. But you don't see a lot of people bringing up Resident Evil 5. Well, you see people bringing up Resident Evil 5, but only, oh, he had dementia, blah, 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 when he was talking to Wesker. It's like, okay, but you got to take into account all the shit that's under his house right now. If he felt bad, all those monsters, he would have killed them off. He would have got rid of them, and there'd be nothing there. But he was still doing experiments, even if it wasn't him personally, because obviously he can't get around. But he was still having people do tests and doing all this shit, right before he died. So Spencer didn't feel bad at all. The reason why Elpis was created, and so basically the game wants to tell you that he created Elpis as an atonement because he felt bad and blah, 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 blah. That's what the cutscenes and everything try to tell you. If you read the 60-page document, though, from everything, basically the very end, when it comes to Spencer's part, the very end of his part of the document, Grace even says, in the end of the day, it's completely they're completely unsure of his true motivations and all that, and basically they don't really know if he had atonement, right? So they didn't completely close that door and say, yep, he felt bad, blah blah blah, and they left that open still, right? Which is good, because he's a piece of shit. He's a very bad man, very, very bad man. So I'm very glad that they left that open. So yeah, no, Spencer was not good. Basically, it comes down to it. If you, like I said, if you play all the games and you follow everything, and you get you basically can figure it out yourself. He made Elpis not because he felt bad, but it was literally a middle finger to his competitors. He created Elpis as if I can't have my research, if I can't continue my research, then nobody can. He created Elpis, makes all of his research pointless. Can't use any of it ever again. And yeah, that's why he made it. It wasn't some atonement. Oh, atonement. I'm sorry for everything that I did. No, it's basically, I'm an old man now. You guys took everything from me. So to hell with you guys. I'm making this so if you want, not if, but when you take all my research, you can't use it. So that's basically what it came down to. What else can I talk about? Because that was the biggest thing. The Spencer thing was the biggest thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, right. The placement of Ark is another thing that I wanted to talk about that made zero sense. So when you do the orphanage part and you're playing as Chloe, you get to the basement part, right? Obviously, you get to the basement part, you climb down, and you're like, oh, I remember this area from the remake of 2. Okay, so this leads to the cable car to go to the lab. Nope, not anymore. I mean, this takes place 10 years prior to that, but still, nope. When you go down there, as you guys know, the fence stops in the, if we're playing Resident Evil 2, the fence stops, you can go around, and you go down another hallway. In Resident Evil 9, the fence goes all the way to the wall. There's a bunch of boxes blocking, and it's just a flat wall that way. There's nothing there. And then there's magically a wall, an opening that goes this way, and you go down the stairs. Whereas in Resident Evil 2, by the time of Resident Evil 2, which is like 8 years, 8 years later, they could have walled it up. There's nothing stopping them, of course. 9 years is quite a long time. So yeah, they could have walled it up. But even then, it makes no sense. So anyway, you go down there, blah blah blah. The one thing I really did like, I loved the concrete doors that had the Umbrella logo on it, and it opens up like that. That was pretty cool. I did like that. The thing that didn't make sense is that there's a ladder that goes up pretty high. So you climb up the ladder, and that ladder, height-wise, would take you to the a little bit higher than the top or the main floor of the orphanage. Now, for that to work, the Ark would have to be above ground and attached to the orphanage, which clearly it's not. Even look at Resident Evil 2 remake. I mean, I know, that was 2019. Then they absolutely had no plan. They didn't plan that far ahead, right? So I can't blame the Resident Evil 2 game remake game for nine's screw up, of course. But if you play that, it's not there. And then even when you play as Leon in Resident Evil 9, where is that building? It's not there. It's gone. So that whole part just made absolutely no sense, for the arc to be there. Just, it's physically impossible for that to work. And then, again, like I said, when you play as Leon, it's like a million feet underground. So they're not even consistent in location wise where it is. It didn't make sense. And even if we pretend that the place where Grace goes wasn't Ark, it was somewhere else, even then, it still doesn't make sense at all. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. That part just made no sense to me. What else can we talk about? The endings. I really wish that either Zeno or Victor survived Resident Evil 9, honestly. The one thing that I can honestly say I absolutely hate about modern Resident Evil game, modern Capcom, is that ever since they killed off Wesker in Resident Evil 5, every single game, the villain dies. There is no overarching villain anymore. Yeah, the stories are connected, but there's no overarching villain anymore, which is, it's kind of stupid, because, you had Wesker from literally 0 to 5. And that's, how many games is that? That's 0, 1, 2, Survivor, 0, 1, 2, 3, Survivor, Veronica, 4, Revelations 1, and 5. Right? That's 9 games that he may not have physically been in, but he was pulling the strings. He was doing whatever he was doing. Even if he wasn't connected to, one of the game's story, he was still off doing his own thing. But now, ever since Wesker died in Resident Evil 5, they haven't kept a consistent villain, and it falls flat. And I don't even care if it was Zeno who died when Victor survived, or the other way around, or Victor died and Zeno survived. That's Capcom's problem nowadays, is that they don't have overarching villains. They don't have villains, bad guys, to look forward to seeing again and again and again, because they kill them off. Look at Alex Wesker from Revelations. That she survived. I mean, survived. In Natalia. I can't see them making Natalia a bad guy, but in a way, okay, she survived, and they didn't do anything with her. Jessica and Raymond, they survived. They're villains, and they haven't done anything with them. It's just stupid. I don't understand it. The end there where Leon dies, I don't want to say I was surprised, but it was interesting that they did that. Yeah, it was a bad ending, but either way, I'm surprised they did. Obviously, they did it for for shock value, but either way, I'm surprised they did it. The ending where basically everybody gets a happy ending, I've seen that coming. Okay, so whatever, that was fine. Apparently, there's a story DLC coming. Nobody knows anything about it. There's a lot of fake bullshit online. Ada's going to be in it. Ada and Chris are teaming up, and blah, blah, bunch of. Don't believe any of it. Unless Capcom says something, don't believe any of it. But there is a story add-on coming out. When that comes out, I will be doing it, of course. I'll probably still be doing Assassin's Creed, because I'm doing Assassin's Creed Ezio Collection. Beautiful, wonderful games. I'm not going to take a break while I'm doing those. What I'll most likely do is I'll upload them, the next day. So when that DLC comes out, most likely what's going to happen is we're going to have, more than 3 videos a week for those ones. Because obviously I don't want to. I mean, that's 3 games, right? It's going to take a hell of a long time to do 3 games. Um, so I'm definitely going to have the DLC in between the Assassin's Creed episodes. Who knows what it's going to be? Whatever it's going to be, probably interesting. I hope the writing's better in the DLC than it is the main game, because like I said, there's a lot of things that just are kind of silly, like the whole like I said, Xeno thing being killed off, and the whole Spencer thing. Oh, he's a good guy now. There's a lot of stuff that just was really dumb. So hopefully the DLC will be better written. Um, but yeah, all in all, there's a lot of highs and a lot of lows that Resident Evil 9 has. I'll be honest with you. In my opinion, it's probably the best Resident Evil game since Code Veronica. You guys know I hate Resident Evil 4. I shouldn't say hate. I dislike Resident Evil 4. And I don't like the path that it's put it on. And I think I've said this many times before. I feel like it hasn't recovered. As much as they made Resident Evil 7 to try and rectify what they did, it still hasn't recovered. But it's very, very much a Resident Evil game, unlike Resident Evil, 7 and 8, in my opinion. So it's probably my favorite one since 9. I mean, since Veronica, it's definitely a very good one. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are for, Resident Evil 9. Tell me what you liked about it, what you didn't like about it, all that fun kind of stuff. I'm very interested. I hope you guys enjoy Assassin's Creed Ezio Collection. I've been having a wonderful time recording those videos and going back and playing them again. They're very, very good. So hope you guys enjoy those videos. I hope you guys enjoyed all of Resident Evil 9. I guess that's about it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in Assassin's Creed. Until then, have a wonderful day.